Okay, this is from our our speaking exam, our speaking test. Test again is informal. Exam is more formal. All right, I think this is Kim Jin Soo. I had 3 brushes with death in my life. I've had 3 brushes with death. I've had 3 close calls in my life. All right, and I'm going to tell you that story now. I'm going to tell you one of those stories now. All right, let's say that. I'm going to tell you one of those stories now. Okay, I was on a mission. I was flying, and I was on one of my flights. One of the enlisted guys was there. I think you said he was a sergeant. And his job was to help me get set up for my flight. The sergeant was there to help me, and he was, I don't remember what this was. His nickname was the Terminator. Okay? We affectionately referred to him as the Terminator. He always helped with our collar, and he would help put our collar up. He would help us, he would help us adjust our collar, right? Our collars, both, you can say that. And he would leave our collar up, and we always liked that. So we were doing our final checks, and I checked my flight indicator. I didn't hear anything strange, but suddenly, all of a sudden, the instructor pilot was like, "Did you hear that? Did you hear anything? Did you hear anything strange?" So we canceled the flight, and we had to go back to the airport, and while we were taxiing back to the gate, or to the base, we found a bolt in the engine. Let's see if this is out. And after inspecting the engine, we learned that the Terminator had done it. After that incident, he became an outcast. Nobody would talk to him. Nobody would talk to him. We'd call him a pariah as well, but that is a much more formal word, and high school students probably will not know that. He had dropped, the Terminator had dropped, or he'd put a large bolt in the engine, right? He was angry and was trying to get revenge. He wanted to kill me. Oh, but I was too smart. He was really angry. He was really bitter. You know, some people, as time goes by, they get more and more bitter. He wanted to play a game of chicken. This story was a little bit, Konglish is less formal. Konglish is more common. When you put, again, I told the other classes, when you put Y on the end, it makes it kind of like a little bit similar to, or children use it, like mommy, daddy. Okay, next story. Tell me. Hit me. Tell me the story. Well, this was American Airlines 965. They were flying from Miami to Cali. They were on their way from Miami to Cali. They were headed to Cali. One of the radar stations had been knocked out, had been attacked by some guerrilla soldiers. The controller didn't have the full or complete picture. When the pilots programmed the waypoints into the computer, they didn't do it correctly. Right? They made some they made some mistakes with the FMS. The captain and the first officer tried to react quickly, but they weren't fast enough, or they weren't quick enough. They didn't respond quickly enough. I explained angry with and angry at. Angry with is a little more formal. Sir, I'm a little bit angry with you. My brother was always angry at me. Why is he always angry at me? Jail versus prison. Jail is smaller, usually in a county or town. You go there for 6 weeks, maybe. And prison is usually bigger, right? And you go there for 3 or 4 years. Another nickname is the Big House. The Big House is also the prison. I want to tell you a story about when I was in the military. This was a cloudy day back in the early 2000s. So I was flying in a cloud, and the instructor told me, "Hey, something, I don't remember what this was." Right? Oh, yes. Hey, it's up to you, but you can do this whatever maneuver. Hey, it's up to you, but you can do this whatever maneuver, right? Was this Lee Byung-gon story? Anyway, I was suffering from, after that maneuver, I was suffering from spatial disorientation. No, this is Sotomus, I think. I didn't believe it, my attitude indicator. I wasn't able to trust my attitude indicator. I thought it was working properly, or I thought that maybe it was malfunctioning. Later on in my career, when I became an instructor, I would always tell my students, you have to trust your instruments, right? And you have to monitor your altitude indicator. And that will keep you safe. You won't die. I have a lot of stories about my time in the Air Force. I only have time to tell you about 2 of them. Even though I have a lot of stories, the first is about a fuel leak. Right? Several years ago, or a few years ago, I took off from Manila. This is Icholhuans. I took off from Manila and I wasn't really able to hear what the tower was saying there. Maybe because of the accent. As you may or may not know, I have some issues with English. We don't say my English is poor. I didn't catch the departure frequency that they told me. So I was there waiting for them to communicate with me, even though I had passed the airport. I was not in contact with the tower. I was just flying along without any concerns, without any communications. Comms is kind of military. Fortunately, I was able to use the Momo. I was really worried. I was really freaking out that they would send a fighter out to intercept me. And I was speaking in the radio, and I think someone heard my voice. Just like Sandra Bullock in that space movie Gravity. Remember she says that? Houston in the blind. Because George Clooney tells her, keep transmitting. You don't know if Houston can hear you or not. This is a real quick one. Wait. Let me tell you the story. I think each one wanted to tell 2 stories. Anyway, he had a fuel leak. I got up out of my chair, and I could see the fuel leaking, right, from the aircraft. So I called on the radio. I called the people. So I requested an emergency landing. You can choose whoever or whomever. You can choose whomever you want. I think this is grammatically the better one. People say this, right? Who versus whom. Again, him, her is for whom, and who is a subject. I went. She went. Who went? Right. To whom are you talking to? But again, if somebody corrects you on this, for who and whom, punch them in the face. Because it's really, native speakers make this mistake. I'll continue the story. I burned up $1 million in about 1 minute, right? And I asked, how did you do this? And he said, or I asked, like, how did you manage to do that? Were you a civil servant? Informal government worker? They're very good at burning up government money. Well, I was just starting out as a fighter pilot. Remember, this verb is very good. If you use also for dongi, like our group class, you could say dongi. He was in my dongi. Usually we use the verb to start out or to hire in. Well, I just started out, right? I just hired in. When I was just starting out as a fighter pilot, this happened. I was in this squadron, and then after 3 years, my first squadron faded out or phased out. I think phased out is on purpose. Faded out is just kind of over time, like a haircut. My first squadron was dissolved. They went away would be really strong. We killed them. They went away. Anyway, I was in Wanju in the 103rd Squadron, and my aircraft, or my plane, was different from the rest of the aircraft in the squadron. And I was really kind of at that time missing my old squadron. So I asked to be transferred. Right. The pilot at the time, I think you were changing bombs or whatever, he told me to remove 3 pins. And I was thinking that they were supposed to be tango-shaped, but they were actually Bravo-shaped pins. Or rather, oh man, actually this story was difficult for me to follow, but I knew there were a lot of colors here, okay? But Adam was really a little bit lost. I don't blame you, Kim Tae-young, because I'm confused. And you're lucky that you didn't die. I'm really happy about that. Anyway, the whole story happened on the ground, okay? Everybody in my squadron criticized me. They came down on me. And I think what you said was you pulled the wrong pins, and this the bomb dropped on the runway, and they were really angry. Everybody came down on me. Everybody criticized me. Everybody chewed me out. Okay, Pakuni, I wanted him to do the Swiss cheese model as applied to the tortoise and hare, to the tortoise and hare story, but no, I was not lucky enough to hear that. This was a good example of counterpart. Counterpart is really a more formal word. So maybe there's two banjang in the class, Isaac and Pakuni, Kamingyu and Pakuni, and then they both have, one would say, well, let's choose your counterpart here. Business partner is more common, right? Anyway, this model shows us that accidents have causes, or multiple causes. There are many things I could say here, but I want to talk about momomo. During the climb and acceleration, we need to check the speed brake and landing gear. This procedure was not performed correctly. Then, after that, we have to closely check the navigation when changing directions. We have to confirm the momomo. They didn't properly follow the procedures, nor practice good CRM. Also, nor did they practice good CRM. They didn't do any of the procedures correctly. Lastly, they didn't share critical information with each other, such as their headings or MSA. This is when Isaac spoke up. Isaac, we want to hear about your personal information. Nah, just kidding. We don't want to hear we shouldn't hear your personal stories. Missed, like I swung the baseball bat, but I missed. Miss out on is something like really good. But you, like, let's say you could go to the party, but you don't. So then after the party, or the next day, Monday, I say, oh, you really missed out on a great party. We had fun. Or you go to church, and the Moksanim, the pastor speaks, but you didn't hear it. And I say, oh, you missed out on a good sermon. Good sermon. So we go. Okay, we didn't take it, or the captain, more than a minute to get, why did it take, sorry about that, why did it take the captain more than a minute to get back to the cockpit? This was from the Air France 447 story. And for me, the Air France 447 is like the it's like the Titanic story, but it's scaled down to 8 minutes or just shorter time. I think maybe less than that. Okay, who's next? You're up. You are on deck. These are from baseball. These are from baseball terms, but we use them. Okay, there are so many good stories I could tell here. My squadron had a lot, or had so many instructor pilots. These are sentences. All of a sudden, our base was hit by bad weather. The weather changed all of a sudden. The weather turned into a nightmare, and we had to go to another base. We have 2 VHF radios. One is for the tower, and the other one is to stay in contact with our squadron. Is this Musong's? I think this is Kim Musong's story. When I contacted the controller, the instructor said, that signal's very weak. So we said, why don't we change over to the Momomo channel? We changed over to the Momomo Squadron channel, or we changed to the Momomo Squadron channel, and the bad weather was causing all sorts of problems with the radio. The bad weather was wreaking havoc. And he was like, what happened? All of a sudden he said, this is engine control. Oh, yes. I think, I can't remember this. Anyway, the controller got on my case. He started yelling at me. He started barking. Barking is a dog sound, but again, remember in English we don't say dog sound. We say, oh, it's like you're barking. You are on the wrong channel. You have to change channels. Okay. So what's the point of all this? Well, we had many good instructors, and Kim Musong was one of them. Yes, that was his story. Okay. Oh, Kim Musong probably wants to speak next. Maybe that was Sol Dong-woo's story. I don't remember. This story was really about when I was in the airport. As you may know, the co-pilot plays a critical role in communicating with the controller. They asked, what type of aircraft are you flying? And I answered with, or I came back with, well, C-130. However, as you may know, many of us Koreans just call it the C-130. So I replied in Korean, the Baeksamchip, all right? So I said, after that, I said, After that, I said I didn't realize what I was saying. So again, I just raised my voice and started speaking loudly or louder. So that's just a story from about or around 12 years ago. So then after the words were out of my mouth, I realized what I had said. Again, we talked about this, the difference between while and during. We use while for verbs, or during for nouns. During the Korean War, 1950 to 1953, my grandparents were in Busan. While the Korean War was going on, while the Korean War was raging on, or was happening, it's strange, my parents were in Busan. Right? Wow, he spoke more than I thought he would. Ichul Hwan spoke a lot more than I thought it would. Okay, we don't have a lot of time. We have to keep things moving along. On a scale of 1 to 10 for instructors, this is a 9 or 10. Right? We got to get going here. Okay. We were doing some practice landings, and I was yelling at my student, "Left rudder!" We were just stuck there on the runway. Oh, I think this is Ashton's. We were just sitting there on the runway. We were like sitting ducks. Sitting ducks is also a military term that they use too. Very common. This is another story about spatial disorientation, I think, right? Disorientation. Oops. I want another story. Oh, another. I ate a hamburger, I want another. The other is you have two in front of you, and you say you want this one, or you want this one. Oh, I want the other one. Not that one, the other one. Okay. I was on a night mission, and I had something, I don't remember the story. The weather was horrible, the weather was terrible, the weather was horrid. Horrid is more formal. I felt the weather was on the, I felt that I was on the wrong heading. Oh, I think this is Ian J's. I brought my attention back to the attitude indicator, right? I started paying attention to the moment. That was one of my most important missions. All my stories, you know, they're secrets. I can't tell you what I've seen. This is another military story. At that time, it was the fastest commercial aircraft in the existence. Oh, this is Lee Dong-woo's. No. Lee Dong-jun's. I was talking about the Concorde. Right? At that time, years ago, that was the fastest aircraft in existence, right? People thought it was 100% safe, right? Everyone thought that it was completely safe. Nobody could have imagined that it would crash like it did. But there was some foreign object damage, some FOD, some debris on the runway, and I think a piece of debris or a piece of metal. And when the Concorde took off, the wheel hit the piece of metal and went into the engines. And this caused the engines to catch on fire. This ignited the fuel tanks. And this is only about 75 seconds after takeoff. A whole lot of people were lost in this accident. A lot of people died. I think a lot of German tourists died. Investigators tried to sort out the causes. You know, because it's so fast that changes. The Concorde is so fast that there are changes to the center of gravity. That it changes the center of gravity. The center of gravity changes. Anyway, they now cover the fuel tanks with Kevlar. Oh, that's a good idea. You know, money is always the problem. Money is always an issue. Really, they should have retired or gotten rid of the program, you know, for that aircraft. They'd already lost money and they were worried about the sunken costs. You get what you pay for. Not always, though. Don't judge a book by its cover. Maybe the opposite of, I think, this one. Right? I need to correct that. Right? Anyway. Do not underestimate me. I think that's a line from Star Wars, but it's true for people, too. To radio for help is also a verb. This story was kind of like a Swiss cheese case, right? Case, or it had the Swiss cheese case effect going on. I was flying with my friend, but she was really sick. This is kind of like, this is Jaeyoung's, right? this story was kind of a Swiss cheese case or Swiss cheese type of thing, right? Or you can say you can see the Swiss cheese model at work here in this story. You can see the Swiss cheese model at work in this story, right? Anyway, my friend was kind of sick, and the day after we were doing this flight, she had a check ride coming up. Right? She was going to have a check ride in just 2 days, or in 2 days, or just 2 days after the the day the story is taking place, the day I'm referring to. Okay, so 2. She was going to have a check ride just 2 days after the day that I'm referring to, the day that I'm talking about. Or she was going to have a check ride in just 2 days. Okay, and then stop the sentence there. The controller kept asking me if I had traffic in sight. I'm like, I'm still looking. And that distracted us, and we forgot about other things, all right? Anyway, my friend, because of her cold, she was really out of it. She was really out of it. She was out of her mind as she's crazy. Panic! But really out of it's like not paying attention. We said, sorry about that. Oops, my bad. My bad is usually used for guys. Okay, there was this lady, or this woman, who wouldn't stop singing. This is Joe and Ace, right? This happened to me personally. Oh, this is another story. We had just 3 people on board, and I started to smell something that smelled like electrical wires burning, or smelled like burning electrical wires. I smelled something that was like burning electrical wires, or it smelled like something was burning. This is about a stall on my cross-country flight. During the flight, nothing really happened. When I was coming in, ATC was saying blah, 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 blah. Up until that point, I had never really experienced strong gusts of wind. The wind kept pushing me to the right, and finally I ended up getting way off course. In the end, I ended up getting way off course. Right? At the end of the day is kind of like when you're emphasizing something that's most important. At the end of the day, teamwork is most important, the most important thing. Anyway, there were another 4 people in the pattern, and after I landed, they said, "Oh, you made it. I thought you were dead. I thought you were a goner." Goner's a dead person. This was a night flight, and I was flying with my student. It was his or her first night flight. We were practicing touch and goes. Anyway, my student slams on the brakes on the runway, and I think we were stuck on the runway. A laser strike. I want to tell a story about a laser strike, or when we were hit by a laser. This was back in 2016. I was flying near the Air Force Base, and I had come back to my home airport. The entire cockpit was illuminated with pretty green lights. Okay. For a brief moment, I couldn't see anything. I was pretty much flying blind. Flying blind, again, is you don't know what's going to happen in the future, and this is a common English phrase, too. We're pretty much flying blind here. Last year sometime, I don't quite remember when. I can't really remember. Right? I don't remember when. I don't remember that well. We were holding short of the taxiway, right? And this one dude in a helicopter requested takeoff clearance. So I was guessing that maybe he turned right, or he would turn right, or had turned right. The captain, my captain is okay, but that's like really more personal. My captain had me sitting in the right seat at that time. Right? Again, rated R in American movies, that's bad. You have to be 17 or 18 to go. PG is for kids. Not too bad. There's also PG-13. Oh my god. Oh friggin' heck. More polite. Oh my gosh. Anyway, this was back when I was 14 years old. This is back when I was 14. Also, this is back when I was 14 years old. I was like 14 years old when this happened. And we were on our way to the airport. Oh, who is the Kim Jong-uk's story? Yeah. By the way, what's your story also means where are you from. I think Kim Jong-uk's story was when he was a kid, when he was 14 years old, they were going to go to the airport, but they didn't go, and where he saw the sign and they took the bus, and at that time he decided to become a pilot. Remember, last but not least, this is very polite or kind of formal, but we say this all the time, especially for classes, or you introduce the last person. Believe in, and I think I had to trust. Believe used for what someone tells you. Believe in is for they have power or they can help you. Do you believe, or they exist? All right. Do you believe in Jesus? Yes, I believe in Jesus. Do you believe in Buddha? Do you believe in Santa Harboji, Santa Claus? Trust is for friend. Hey, you're a friend. I trust you. All right.